Hey, what's going on guys? It's Tom Mason here, back with another video, and in this video we're talking about the equipment that I used on my recent trip to go and photograph polar bears in Churchill with Churchill Wild. Now if you haven't seen that video and you want to see the kind of talk about the trip and the images and everything like that, be sure to check that out first. I'll stick a link up here, but if you're here for the gear, let's jump into it and start talking. Churchill was the first time that I had a full mirrorless loadout in my kit. That was really exciting. I had the Z9 and the Z8 with me as my primary cameras. I mean, both of them are fantastic tools for wildlife photography. 45 megapixels, 20 frames per second, absolutely wicked, great autofocus tracking, everything like that. And having used them for the last couple of years, I'm so used to them and comfortable with them now that I felt like I didn't need a DSLR as a backup in my kit bag, and I've completely moved to these cameras for the professional work. Didn't get through 2 batteries on a Z9 in a day at any point, got through 3 or so on the Z8, but I was doing a lot of filming with that. But you know, really impressive and just always working when I needed them to. The main lens I was working with for my wildlife photography was the Nikon 600mm f4 TCZ. This is such a stunning lens. You guys have heard me talk about it before on the channel, but picked this up, had it about a year now, and it's just incredible, especially for a trip like this where I know subjects are going to be more distance, where I want more working space. Having the 600, the flexibility of the TC built in with just that like in, out, is just amazing. You know, when you're in a static position with the bears moving around, I can't move forward, can't move back, but I want to change kind of like compositions. Having that there is just a game changer. And especially in cold conditions when you've got, you know, the winds battering you, you've got spin drift, snow, everything like that. You can't take the camera off because you can expose it to all those elements, but you can use the TC, put it in, put it out. A massive bonus for us Nikon shooters having this in the lineup, and having the 400-2.8 as well with the tele converters. Superb. I'm so glad that I had this on the trip, and the images that came out of it were just absolutely excellent. Really happy with it. I'll do more videos on the 600 birds and everything like that in the future, but yeah, top quality lens. Now talking about my 300, you guys who follow the channel will know that I love my 300 2.8 and couldn't bring it with me on the trip because I was limited in terms of like weight and everything that I could take with me. So I picked up the 300 PF f4 before the trip. Great thing about this is it gives me a small light 300mm that can go alongside the 600 to give me varying focal lengths. That's ideal, you know, if we would have got closer to the bears than we did. Yeah, it takes up like literally no space in the bag. It's only about the same length as a 24-70, weighs 700 odd grams or something. That meant that I could have both a 300 and a 600 in the bag, not take up too much room. That is why I grabbed this. You know, if I'm shooting 300 anywhere else, I probably would use my proper 300 2.8, but for travel, everything like that, 300 PF really cannot be beaten. I've got the FTZ2 on the back, so I could just immediately attach it to my cameras. The third lens that I used a lot on the trip was the 24-120. Just gave me a really great range for shooting, you know, more environmental stuff, if I'm shooting landscapes, portraits, as well as a lot of the aerial images that I took out of the plane when we were flying over the Hudson Bay. This was excellent for that. Always take the lens hood off, put that in my pocket when I'm shooting in the plane, so you don't keep banging it on the window and you don't get the additional vibration, so always do that, little tip there. But yeah, this was great for that, picking out those compositions. And you know, when I was shooting out on on the tundra, what I would tend to have is the Z8 would have the 24-120 on it, the Z9 would be mounted on the 600 on the tripod, and then the 300mm, because of its small size, would actually go in my pocket of my jacket that I'll talk to you about in a bit. Obviously all that gear needed to travel in something, and I did use my trusty Lowepro Whistler 450 AW version 1. This bag has had a battering. It's been on so many trips. You'd have seen it when I went to the rainforest a good few years back now. I've taken it on so many UK trips. It is a beast of a camera rucksack, but it is getting battered and showing its age. I have made a few adjustments to it. Obviously the 600mm is quite a long lens, and it shouldn't technically fit in the 450. You have to make a few adjustments. One of the big ones is you have to take a knife to your bag, and in the inside, in the insert here, you have to cut along these lines and take the plastic kind of pieces that feed into it. The reason for that is you can then stretch the insert a little bit higher and push it right up, and then it will fit the 600 in here. Obviously not with the camera attached, but then in this bag I could have the 600, the Z8, Z9, the 24-70, the 24-120, the 300 PF, as well as a 35 1.8 prime, and my 17-28 2.8 Z mount lens as well. All fits in here, and then I know that I can throw it above my head in carry-on, not have it taken off me. It's amazing what you can get in this bag. I do have a new camera bag that I will talk about in another video. That's my more kind of day-to-day bag these days. This one, I'm just so comfortable traveling with it because I know I've never had it taken off me. That's great, but yeah, really good for that. But yeah, the Whistler 450 AW, I've taken it on loads of trips, absolutely love it as a bag, but I'm going to have to find a replacement soon because this one is getting battered. Right, now the next big piece of equipment that I had with me is obviously my tripod. This is my Gitzo 4553S, I think it is. Yeah, 3S. This is the short version of the Gitzo 4 series. You just get an extra leg section, but it's fantastic because it means it takes up less space in the bag. It's lower on its first section, that's nice and handy for wildlife photography, but really it's about the smaller size for when I'm traveling. On the top I had the Gitzo 4 series ball head. I toyed between the options of taking my fluid gimbal, a video head, or a ball head. I settled on the ball head just because I did also think I would have the chance to photograph some northern lights, that I did. Yeah, so having the ball head gave me more flexibility. It's also a lot smaller to fit in my check luggage. But I think next time when I go back to Churchill, I will take my fluid gimbal as well as a ball head, just because with the long lens, you just, it's a bit nicer, but still, the ball head supports it really well. Because you've got the variable friction, it maintains the weight of the lens whilst you're moving, but of course, it's just not as rapid as a gimbal. But as a compromise in terms of like weight, to do everything from wide angles to long lenses, it just worked really well. I never leave anywhere without a tripod because just that rigid support, having the flexibility to work with slow shutter speed when I'm shooting video and everything, is just absolutely imperative. Investing in a good tripod is one of the best things you can do as a wildlife photographer and a photographer in general. I swear by my Gitzos. I've used them since I was like 16 and they are wicked. You will also notice that my one has gaff tape wrapped around the legs, and that's because when I go on a trip, I always need gaff tape, and taking an extra roll of gaff tape seems a bit silly on a reasonably like small trip, so I wrap it around the legs, and then I've got some to work with if I need it, but I don't have to throw a whole roll in the bag. So that is there. So I recently picked up the DJI Action 4. This is just so I can get a really small camera to get some kind of footage of me. I had a little necklace mount that mounted it here like this, so I could film what I was doing when I was shooting out on location. Just really have those kind of like behind the scenes bits of video. Good quality sensor in this, shoots 4K, really nice. And actually I was so shocked how well the battery did in the absolute freezing cold. I had it mounted here, you know, top of my jacket open so I could see out. The battery would easily last a good couple of hours, and I could just charge them up when I was like having lunch or whatever. Really great. And this is something I'm going to be using a lot more in the future, so that when I'm out on a shoot and I'm using my two cameras professionally for my work, I can always grab some behind the scenes videos, talk to you guys and show you what I'm out shooting. So there'll be a lot more videos with this guy for sure. Now next up, of course, I did have my binoculars with me. These are my Nikon Monarch HGs. They're the 8x30s. They're my favorite to travel with. They're so small and compact, but still have great light gathering and optical quality. You know, when you're spotting wildlife at distance, you're staring through over the kind of tundra looking for the bears. These are absolutely essential, and they're also kind of my lucky charm. I've had them for years now. They're absolutely battered, but every trip that I go on and take these always, you know, provide some fantastic wildlife opportunities. So I never leave home without those. Of course, working in cold conditions, one of the most important things that is really imperative to all the gear whatsoever is staying warm and comfortable. And for that, I had my fantastic Shackleton Harkon Parker. Now the guys at Shackleton sent this out to me to test out in the cold conditions, and it is superb. This is by far my favourite jacket I've ever owned. It is incredible. It is so warm, it is so comfortable to wear. When the wind was battering, you know, when the snow was coming, it was just excellent. And it also works really well as a photography jacket through to a couple of key things about its design. Firstly, these big pockets on the front here are big enough for whole lenses. So when I was out and I'd have the Z8 on one side, the Z9 on the tripod, I could have the 300PF just in my pocket like that. And then I don't have to carry a big camera bag with me as well. So when I was walking out in the tundra, I could minimize what I had with me and focus on the job in hand. That's really handy, really easy to get to if I needed it, but of course out the way when I'm walking around. Additionally, the down fill keeps you extremely warm. It's 850 down fill. Lovely little bits of, like, you know, fleece lines, so it's nice against your face, everything like that. And then the pockets, the positioning, of course, ideal for keeping your batteries in. Even though the battery life was really good, I'm still cycling my batteries through in cold conditions. If I'm photographing something and the battery gets to about half charge, I take it out, put it in my pockets, put a fresh one in, and keep doing that. Just because if there's some action, you see it, and you're at the end of a battery, you don't want to be like faffing around in the cold trying to get a new battery in. Switch it out ahead of time and keep them nice, close to your chest, inside your jacket, to keep them warm, and then they last much, much longer. But yeah, my batteries would just be inside here. And then down the bottom, you've also got a nice big pocket that I had my mittens in. I didn't wear my big mittens all that much, mostly because, you know, I've got my liner gloves on, and then I'm dumping my hand into the fleece line pockets that this has. The reason for that is I want the dexterity to be behind the camera to change all the buttons and everything like that and make sure I'm getting the shots I'm after. Big clunky gloves is something I don't really get on with, but of course you need some big mitts, because when the weather really closes in and you're standing there getting freezing cold, it's really nice to have. And if you do get cold hands, having a pair of these, just throw them in there and just warm them up. They're toasty in no time. These are the black diamond ones. These are a recent purchase of mine for the trip, but I have used these same gloves before. A friend lent me them for another trip, and they were great, so that's why I picked them up. Waterproof, you know, insulated, but they're so handy as well. When you've got the tripod over your shoulder, you're walking back, your liner gloves aren't going to cut it, so having these on, I can just put one big mitt around the tripod and hold it as I'm walking, and I'm ready to shoot. And of course, because they're just big, nice mitts, just pull them off really quickly, stash them in your pocket. You don't want to leave them on the ground, anything like that, because if they blow away, you're not going to get them. But pop them in the big pocket, hold them close, and then they're ready to warm you up if you need them. But yeah, the Shackleton Parker, amazing, so good. I also have a Shackleton down jacket that goes inside this if it's even colder, but I didn't really need that at all on the trip. This was more than enough. You've also got the fur on the hood, you know, it just stops the wind coming across your face, keeping you warm in those really poor conditions. But yeah, superb jacket, super excited to take this on many more expeditions and trips. Love this jacket, and it's orange, that, you know, who doesn't love orange? Just the best. Right, mitts, jacket, other essentials, goggles and glasses. So I've got my Oakley goggles, but I've also got my Vallon kind of glacier glasses. These are brilliant. I was actually wearing contact lenses on a few days on the trip. Having these means I can kind of protect the edges of my eyes, I can focus through them, polarized, everything like that, protect you from the harsh sun that's bouncing off the ice and the snow. Work really well, very comfortable and nice to wear, kind of not as heavyweight as goggles. They don't kind of steam your face up, and it's easier to press these up against the viewfinder and shoot pictures than it is when you're working with goggles. Of course, you do want a set of goggles in conditions like that up on the snow for the glare, but also when the wind's really bad, it's whipping against your face and you're kind of like trudging into it, a good pair of goggles just protect you and just make you more comfortable, protect your eyes and keep you safe. Of course, warm your face up a bit. So I've also got my Oakleys that I did have with me on the trip and wore on a couple of days. So that's eye protection. Of course, super important in cold, very bright conditions of the Arctic, subarctic, when there's a lot of snow. Additionally, of course, I got my cover for the camera. This is my wildlife watching supplies, lightweight, all-in-one cover, takes everything, goes over the 600 and the camera. What I love about these, made in the UK, Kevin's great, works down at Wildlife Watch Supplies, but they're big enough that you can get your hands in as well. So when it's really cold conditions, you know, it's snowing, whatever, raining in the UK, you can actually get your hands in and actually work with the camera. And even if you're lying behind the camera, you can actually like pull your head right into it, stop you getting wet and soaked. You know, the water doesn't get into the camera. Really great to have these. Of course, you always want to be keeping gear as protected as possible in any condition, so that is always in the bag. Another thing that is essential to think about in these cold conditions is when you get back to the lodge. A lot of the time when we're coming back for lunch, going in, I wouldn't even bring the camera equipment inside. I would just leave it outside, either in the waterproof cover if it was still snowing a bit, as well as in like bin bags that are wrapped up. You make sure you get all the air out, just leave them outside. I take the batteries out, take the memory cards out to download any pictures, but just leave the cameras outside so they don't warm up. Now in the evenings when it got super cold, I did want to bring some stuff inside the lodge. So what I would do every single night is take it all, wrap it in plastic bags, pack it into the camera bag, and then just bring that into the kind of lobby bit of the lodge that was less warm than the other bits of it, and let it slowly warm up. You never want to kind of be out in the cold, walk back in with your camera gear and have it just heat up immediately. You're going to get condensation problems, and you really don't want that with your expensive equipment. So it's something to think about. Always have a few bin bags handy so you can wrap the gear up, get the air out, and let it warm up slowly. And that goes the same even if it's cold in the UK. You know, when I was out photographing hares in the snow last year, still something I do. Be careful with condensation and just let it warm up gradually to make sure you don't get any problems. The final things, of course, have my laptop with me, my MacBook Pro, and a couple of hard drives. 4 terabyte SSD and then another like 5 terabyte G-Tech drive, just so I can back it up. I've got a nice small backup here on an SSD that's probably the safest, and I didn't take any of the images off the cards. I have enough memory cards these days that I don't really have to overwrite any images on a trip. I mean, this was kind of like a 1-2 week trip, so I didn't anticipate that I would shoot more than the 4 terabytes of cards that I have, but on longer trips I will have to cycle through and double back up to additional hard drives. But for this trip I had a full set on the cards that once I shot them they were left and kept and ready to take home. I put 1 copy on the SSD, 1 copy on the full normal hard drive, and of the best images I also copied them to my MacBook hard drive, just in case, separate the data, keep it safe, so when I could get home I could back everything up on the main drives. And that's how I kind of got the pictures. I did a little bit of Lightroom on my laptop while I was out there, just so I could check through the shots that I was creating and make sure that I was, getting new pictures each day. But that's about it for the gear. Hope you enjoyed a little look behind the gear that I took out to Churchill. Fantastic opportunity to go work with Churchill Wild. Big thanks to Shackleton for sending me the jacket. Absolutely epic. Great for the conditions, and I cannot wait to go on some more cold adventures. And if you do want to come with me to Churchill and other locations, be sure to sign up for my mailing list, like and subscribe to the channel to hear about any of my upcoming trips that I will be taking and hopefully guiding people on. But until the next one, guys, get out there, enjoy your wildlife photography, and I'll see you soon.